All righty. So we do have a list here of all of our COG representatives. I tell everyone that I encounter, even if you are at a different university, please do not feel like you just have to reach out to your person. Say your person is on vacation. You can reach out to anybody on this list, and we are here to help you. But we're part of the Washington Research Library Consortium, and we're the Textbook Affordability Working Group. Alrighty, so our agenda for today, we are going to go over what are open textbooks, the benefits of open textbooks, also our textbook review program. And for today's presentation, we are going to do a special focus on evaluating OER and different tools and resources that are available. And we are going to end with questions and answers. Alrighty, so starting with open textbooks, you may have heard of open textbooks, you may be a little bit familiar, you may even be using an open textbook, but they are essentially textbooks that are free, and typically they are online. There are some print versions, which I will discuss a little bit later, but they are written by faculty and they are subject matter experts. So people that are writing these books are not just like random people saying, I like this subject and I'm going to write a book about it. These books are typically written by faculty members and people that are experts in their field. A lot of them are peer reviewed. That seems to be a standard. A lot of us come from the traditional academic background of peer reviewing material. So a lot of the open textbooks are peer reviewed and are peer reviewed in a similar manner to that way. But open textbooks have been designed to equalize access to course materials. As we know, college expenses have just been on the rise. There are textbooks that cost about $800. Not everybody can afford an $800 textbook. Open textbooks have been developed so all students have equitable access to, education and access to being able to start their courses on time and being able to actually participate. And a lot of open textbooks are shared openly under a Creative Commons license. There are different Creative Commons licenses, which we will have a class on later in this semester, but they are typically, you will see the CC BY at the beginning of an open textbook. And we do have an example, and I'll kind of talk about that example that I will show later on and exactly what that Creative Commons license means. Also, if you are an instructor and you're like, I really like my students to have a copy version, a print version of a textbook, they can be printed at a low cost for students that may need them. So open textbooks and student success. Again, they have been created to encourage equity and accessibility. So it is removing the cost barrier posed by commercial textbooks. As I stated, I've seen textbooks go for around $800 for one textbook. And that class needs multiple required textbooks, right? So we are trying to remove that barrier cost for students and make it so that they are able to have textbooks. So open textbooks are immediately accessible anywhere with an internet connection. Because of the pandemic, a lot of classes have turned to being online, and it's kind of favorable for a lot of students. So we have these hybrid schedules of students either being online completely, or they may have some classes in person. But open textbooks give students the ability to be able to access their textbook anywhere. So if a student's like, hey, I'm out this week because I have COVID, it doesn't mean that they will, miss time in class. They're able to access their textbook. They have to fly across the country. They're able to access their textbook at any time, which we really like for students. And unlike online commercial textbooks with course codes, these textbooks, again, are online for free, and students are able to access these textbooks even after the course ends. We've all been there where you have access to a textbook and then the day after the class ends, you no longer have access to it. And you just probably spend around $500 on that textbook. These textbooks are available at all times. Alrighty, and in engaging in your classroom, I think this is so important. Faculty have the flexibility to revise and adapt materials from a variety of sources to fit the needs of their classroom. So if you're like, I really want to use an open textbook, but it's not quite hitting the mark of exactly what I need for my class, You can mix and match those different textbooks and even start to create your own material and adopt from that material. So you can make sure that it's matching the needs of your class, which a lot of people like. Sometimes when you have a textbook, especially a commercial one, you are just posed to the material that is in that textbook. You can't really deviate from it, right? But with open textbooks, you can deviate from that and adapt it to the needs that you need for your class. Also to the multi-model learning, using open textbooks and open educational resources really enhance the classroom experience. So if you have some experience with open textbooks, you will see that some actually have like videos installed in them, interactive 3D models. It is completely different from a print textbook where it's just flat and you get what you get in the book and that's it. Also, too, you want to engage your students in different ways of the learning process. We all learn different. And what we found with open textbooks is that students are able to engage kind of all of their senses when they're engaging with these textbooks. So you may be asking, well, I'm a little bit more interested in this. How do I get started? Well, one, we have an open textbook library called the OTL. We always say explore it, ask questions. We are here to help. And then also too, with these classes that we do, you can learn from faculty panelists. So people who are actually using open textbooks, people may have created open textbooks. When you come to these classes, we typically have people here that have had that experience that are able to talk about it. And if you're like, okay, well, I really do want to get started, you can visit the OTL on your own. And you can select the right textbook for your course and you can adopt it or revise it for your students. And again, your TWAG representative is here to help you. And again, if they say they're out on vacation or they're sick, you can always email one of us and we are right there to help you get started. And I know some people may be here for this because you probably heard about our program, but the Open Textbook Review Stipend is a program that we have put together to help a component of open textbooks, and that is actually reviewing open textbooks. So there is a peer review process of open textbooks, and I'm going to actually show you an example so you can see what it looks like of how you're able to look at an open textbook that is in the process of being published and actually submit your feedback on it. We have established a program where if you attend any of our workshops, and if you're attending today, you've already did step one, you can receive a $200 stipend for, going through the textbook and leaving an honest review. So you would just select a textbook in the open textbook library to review, and then you will complete a concise textbook review by March 2024, and I will get the actual date for you guys. And then you would just submit it to the open textbook library and you get $200 for that, which I think is pretty cool because I know most of the time when we do peer reviews, we are not getting paid for it. It is considered service for our universities. So moving on to an example, and I'm actually going to click out of my screen so I can show you and demo this in live time for you. But I'm going to look at this book right here, the Open Educational Resource College Public Speaking Textbook. This is a real textbook. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that textbook and I'm going to click out of here. And this is the textbook of itself. And I'm going to just go through a few components of it. So here, if you were in the OTL and you were like, I need a book about public speaking, and say this book came up, you may say, okay, I'm here, but I'm not necessarily for sure what exactly everything on this page means. Well, one, here's the title of the textbook. And you can see it right here. And here's some background information. So some of the background information that is there is who wrote this book. I think that's always very important. It's something that I speak to my students about. When you are looking at source materials, you need to figure out who wrote it. And are they backed by a university? Are they backed by an institution? So we see here who wrote this book, and also the university or institutions that they are backed by, and where it was published at, the copyright year, and the last time it was updated, which I think is really important, that last time that it's updated. So has there been any changes to it? Also, too, if you scroll down, you see the formats available. So we have it in PDF, an MS Word, or ebook. So there are several platforms that you are able to access this textbook. And then when we roll over here, we have our table of contents. So we get a sneak peek of exactly what is in the book without having to open it first, right? In addition to that, we have our CC license, our CC BY, right? So I had mentioned earlier that with the Creative Commons licensing, there are a couple of different licenses that can happen. And I know sometimes people get confused by it. But this license right here, which you will probably see the most when you are looking at open textbooks, the CC BY NCSA, and it is the Attribution Non-Commercial Share Alike. So basically what this license allows you to do is that it can be, in regards to this textbook, it can be remixed, it can be tweaked, it can be built upon of the original work with your work, but it has to be non-commercial. And you have to give credit to the people that originally created this information, right? You can't just co-opt it and say, this is mine. No, you have to give credit to the people that did the original work for this book. Alrighty. And also with that being said, I mentioned the peer reviews. So if you come down here, you see actual reviews that people have left for this book. It is right here. So if you were to leave a peer review, it would be right here. If you decided to do the stipend program. Those reviews will be right here. Your credentials will be out there. So people will see like these are real people, these are real professors that have reviewed it, that have taken their time out to actually look at the source to let us know, is this a good source that we could possibly use? And also too, I want to make sure I don't miss this about the book. So like I always say, like the abstract or the summary of giving you kind of what exactly this book is about. And then we have some ancillary material for this book, which I really like. So if you click here under ancillary material, it is going to take you to additional material that you can download. And it kind of gives you a brief summary of everything that you can download with this book that will help you with the course. So say if you have a public speaking course, this is the ancillary material that is associated with it. And so that's just a brief overview of what we have in OTL. And then we are going to pass it off to Meghan, who's going to talk about evaluating OER sources. Meghan, you're muted.
Thank you for catching that. My daughter woke me up overnight twice, so I'm a little out of it today. As you can see, Brianna already sort of walked you through evaluating an OER resource. She walked through how you can find things, the contents, the reviews, just to sort of get an idea that's out there. But we're going to go a little bit in depth, more in depth about what you may want to consider when you're evaluating OER material for your course. And so I want to start with, how do you already evaluate material for your course? Feel free to put that in the comments or unmute yourself if you have something you want to share that way. Just giving everyone a chance if they want to type. One thing I have helped professors do is when they want to convert their course to OER, they're like, here's my current textbook. I want something like this. How do I find something like this as OER? And that's where a librarian come in, because we know where all the OER materials are located, and we can take your existing course text and your syllabus and then give you a short list of possible materials for you to review. I have someone who just put in the chat, I use the BEAM method. Does it provide important background to the topic? Yes, that's one way to do it. Does it provide evidence to the topic? Yes. Waiting for the typing to come in. Does it provide argumentation around the topic? Yes. I know there's one more because it's the BEAM method. Does it provide methods for approaching the topic? Yes, this is a great way to evaluate a resource. And the reason I kind of wanted to give the opportunity for you to share how you currently evaluate your course material is because how you evaluate your commercial material is exactly how you can evaluate your OER material. Another person come in, does it provide diversity, equity, and inclusion? Yes, that's another thing to consider. And that's a perfect way here to segue into our, things you may want to consider when you're reviewing OER material. The first is coverage. Does it provide the depth and or the breadth of what you need for a particular course? If you're teaching an intro level writing course, that's going to be different from an intensive writing seminar within a particular subject area. So you want to find a coverage that speaks to the course you are teaching, the particular course in front of you. As with everything, you want to consider, is it accurate? Is the content correct? Is it error-free? Just like commercial textbooks can have some typos and printing errors, so too can OER. So you want to be able to go through your textbook and be like, yes, this is factually correct. The material being shared here is correct. And also it's error-free in terms of printing and where captions are located and things like that. You also want to consider which CC license is applied to it. Now, there are many different kinds of CC licenses out there. When it comes to OER, the most common ones are CC BY. If you are ever interested in learning more about that, we can discuss that. The UDC library has a LibGuide where we walk you through some of the CC licenses, but you want to look for a license that works for your course. If you're considering remixing it for your particular class, you're going to want something that you can edit. If you are considering possibly updating this into something you can sell, you want to make sure the license does not have a non-commercial, aspect to it. So this is something you want to consider. And it's always valuable to look for the ones that are the most open because that is the OER material you can do the most with. You also want to consider the level of the material. OER actually got its start really in K through 12. Quite a bit of material out there is for the K through 12 audience and not necessarily for higher ed. So you want to consider what is the level of this. At the same time as OER has taken off, a lot more materials coming out, not just for those lower level or community college courses, but for those higher level classes. I've seen some material that are written in graduate level language. And so these are things you want to consider. What group of students are you working with? Are you working for first year freshmen, or are you working with graduate level students in a particular niche area? And then you also want to consider the accessibility of the material. Just because it is OER does not necessarily mean it is accessible for all of your students. So you want to consider the differing abilities, and that goes beyond just, can this be read by a screen reader? And while that is important, screen readers are incredibly important. You also want to consider things. What is the format of this? Not everyone has an Adobe PDF software license. They might not be able to read a strict PDF version. So you always want to make sure that all of your students can actually access the material. If there's video content, you want to make sure that it's not being required to be used on some sort of platform that is proprietary that students would have to pay a license for. And then you also want to consider, is there a way, students can change this material to be more accessible to them? Can they enlarge the text if they want to read it? A lot of our students are reading the textbooks on their phones. You want to make sure that the text can be used on a phone. So anytime you are looking at OER or OA material for your class, I recommend breaking out a phone and seeing if it is accessible on the phone and on a mobile app. And then there are many, many, many different evaluation rubrics out there. The ones listed on the screen are by no means the only one, but they're some of the most predominant. And there's no reason to go tracking these down on your own. They are available on UDC's OER guide, and there's a short bit.ly link at the bottom that you can have access to. And again, this is being recorded, so you don't need to remember that. But you can use these evaluation criteria to help you determine, does this meet my needs? Not every OER material is going to be, perfect on a rubric, but it can help you decide what bits and pieces you might want to use. One of the best factors of OER is that you can use multiple OER resources. You don't just have to use one single textbook. Because these materials are free, you can mix and match and pull from many different things. And a lot of our faculty have done that. They'll pick one main textbook, and then maybe they'll find a couple of OER articles and a couple of free videos, and they'll mix and match. They no longer feel like they're beholden to one textbook because that is what they made their students buy. And so again, We know this was a brief overlook on how to evaluate material, but this is more to start the conversation. Here on the screen are the members of the Textbook Affordability Working Group. We are happy to help. If you don't have a representative here, you can contact us at open@wrlc.org to get the entire committee, and one of us will be able to help you. And so we want to be able to give time for questions today, but we also want to give you time to get credit for attending today. So you can either scan the QR code on the screen or type in the bit.ly link, and I'll drop it in the chat in a second, and fill out this very brief form, and then you will get the invite to review a textbook in the Open Textbook Library and have a chance for that stipend, that $200 stipend. Waiting to see if anyone has any questions. Feel free to either raise your hand or drop it in the chat. And you don't have to focus on just evaluating. If you have any OER related questions, we are happy to help answer those. Thank you, Dr. Yarish. All right, not seeing anything come in today. I would like to thank you again for attending. I'm going to leave this screen up in case anyone needs to scan the QR code or click on the link. But again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact either your TOG representative or Open at WRLC. And you can also go to our website, OpenWRLC, for more information.